Um, Pranav and Croeso i bawb, good afternoon and welcome all to this virtual Senedd event celebrating 101 years of international volunteering. I'm Hannah Harvey. I'm the Head of Programme Development and Policy for the Welsh Centre for International Affairs. And I'm really delighted to see all your names and some of your faces on my screen today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you in particular to Heledd Vychan MS for sponsoring this Senedd event today. So before we get started, will you please just allow me a few moments for a little bit of housekeeping? There's live translation throughout this meeting. So if you want to hear the translated content, click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select the English language. Okay. Just message me if that doesn't make sense and I will talk you through it again. I do want to hear your llais, your voices, but if you would please keep yourselves on mute unless you're within a breakout room, and at which point it'd be great if you could take your cameras off, put your cameras on and take yourselves off mute so you can speak to our amazing volunteers and hosts. This meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want to be filmed, please feel free to keep your cameras off and label your name as Anon. And there won't be filming within breakout rooms within the human library content, okay? So this is a safe space for minoritized people and no discriminatory behavior will be tolerated. And if you do want to make a formal complaint after this session, you can find our safeguarding policy online at wcia.org.uk, which has more information. Okay, so that's enough from me for now. I'm going to hand over to Susie Ventressfield, Chief Executive for the WCIA, to welcome you all to today's event. Thank you.
So welcome everybody. I'm Han, just give me a thumbs up to check everyone can hear me. I always like to check first. Brilliant. I'm really excited to be here to celebrate 101 years of international exchange. Just very briefly, for those who don't know me, I'm Susie Ventressfield, the Chief Exec of the WCIA. And the WCIA is a charity that inspires people across Wales to learn about and take action on global issues. And it's our hope that one day every single person in Wales will contribute to creating a fairer and more peaceful world. And we were really pleased to merge with our sister charity UNA Exchange last year on the 1st of April. And between us, we have 47 years experience of offering international exchange and volunteer work camps, as well as school and professional exchange opportunities. So those are currently mostly funded by Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps. So lots of experience between us. I have to say that there were some inherent challenges involved in merging with an international exchange organisation in the midst of a global pandemic. But we were really pleased to be able to keep some volunteering and international exchange going where it was safe to. But we're also now on a really strong footing to rebuild the programme following COVID. I just want to touch a little bit on the origins of the work camp and international exchange movement. So we think back to 101 years ago, Europe and really areas all across the globe were devastated still in the aftermath of World War I. And although the war had ended in 1918, that devastation, but also a legacy of hatred and xenophobia, really pervaded across Europe. And it was a Swiss pacifist and conscientious objector who joined with others to discuss what could be done. And from those discussions, the first peace camp was born. International volunteers from across Europe came together, intending to reconstruct a war-damaged village in France. But unfortunately, when villagers learned that 3 Germans were included in this work camp, they insisted that the Germans should leave, and that work camp failed. However, despite this initial failure, it was the start of an incredibly resilient movement that has persisted through all of the challenges of the last 101 years. At that time, the organisation's Service Civil International was born. It helped after floods and natural disasters. It responded to the rise of fascism in the 30s, helping those fleeing from Spain. And actually, the international work camp movement now has voluntary organisations across the globe. It's persisted over decades, a Second World War, the Cold War, and it's evolved to meet the needs of young people. It's expanded horizons and improved life chances of young people across the world, but also brought huge benefits to communities and encouraged international solidarity. In Wales, the first work camp was in the 30s, It was organised by the Quakers, and the project cleared rubbish and dug a swimming pool and painted houses. But there have been many more work camps in Wales. Every single county in Wales has a work camp over the years. They've had social and environmental purposes. And what they've had in common is that they've brought people together from across Europe and beyond to work together on a project. These people have become friends with each other. They've built relationships and solidarity. And so it's with huge relief and thankfulness that from us to the Welsh Government for announcing the International Learning and Exchange Programme, because we know that this programme has an opportunity to fill some of the gaps that young people, because we know from the loss of Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps, young people are going to miss out on opportunities from Wales. However, the ILEP, the International Learning Exchange Programme, does have the potential to fill some of those gaps. And we're working really hard at the moment as that programme develops to make sure that it offers opportunities to all young people in Wales. So the event today, it's really exciting. We're going to hear from returning volunteers, current volunteers, volunteers who've gone on to run work camps in Wales and host organisations. And really, we're going to showcase the diversity of content and the diversity of programmes and activities that we really hope will continue to be supported through the ILEP. But just before I hand over, I wanted to end on a bit of a personal note, if that's okay. I've been really lucky and really privileged in my life, but I did grow up in a rural area. My parents hadn't been to university, and many of my peers never left the area where we lived. I'd been quite badly bullied in school and really lacked self-confidence. But I knew I wanted more, I wanted to leave the area. And for me, it was an international exchange opportunity in Kenya that set me on my life course. And 22 years later, that's a long time, I've worked in 5 countries with colleagues from all across the globe. And it's given me opportunities and confidence that I really could never have dreamed of as a low self-confidence teenager growing up in the countryside. But the other thing it's given me is a real appreciation of the complexity of the global issues we face, but also the incredible innovation and ideas that are possible when you work together with people from across borders, and the difference you can make at a local level, at a national level, and at a global level. And so ILEP, the International Learning Exchange Programme, the new one, gives an opportunity for Wales to make sure that those kinds of experiences are available to every young person in Wales, including those far less privileged than I was. Yes, to provide fantastic opportunities for employment and skills, but also, really importantly, to create the global citizens of the future who can work in partnership and solidarity to create a truly globally responsible Wales that I know we all want. Young people who can work together with others from across the world and create a fairer and more sustainable and more peaceful world. So I'd be delighted to hand over and hear from, I'm really looking forward to myself to hearing from our speakers today and as they share their experiences.
Diolch fawr iawn. Wedyn drosodd i fi.
Thank you very much. And over to me, I take it. So if I'm speaking in Welsh, if you can give me a thumbs up to show me that it's working.
There's a thumbs up from some people. Is translation working for everyone? Yep, okay.
I'll continue, therefore. Thank you very much to you all for being here today, and thank you for the invitation to speak as well. I will...
Siwr bod ni gyd eisiau clywed gan bobl sydd wedi cael y profiadau hyn yn hytrach na...
want to hear from people who've had these experiences rather than politicians, but I want to ensure and make sure that I am also, and that you know that I am passionate about this and sharing the vision to ensure that every person in Wales has this opportunity, because it is exceptionally important that not only people who are in universities, who have the opportunities of that vision in terms of ensuring this equal opportunity is for all. It's very interesting to hear from Susie and be reminded about the history of all of this. And I have also been reflecting on Wales 101 years ago and thinking about the terrible effects of the First World War that led to so many positive international changes in terms of Wales, in terms of things such as establishing the peace and goodwill message that will celebrate its centenary next year. And central to all of this, of course, was this aspiration for peace and the idea of extending out to other countries for us to understand different cultures and to nurture empathy and better understanding of those things that are common between us and not different between us. And unfortunately, wars still happen today. We also see, despite the fact that Wales is a nation of sanctuary and that we're proud of that, hate and racism still exist, and something that has become more obvious since Brexit. And the reasons for this are very similar to 101 years ago, namely the fact that there is fear, lack of understanding, and that is why, therefore, that volunteering schemes that link us together are so vital. As we'll hear from our speakers today, and as we heard from Susie, there are so many advantages for individuals who are part of such schemes, and that is something to celebrate without doubt in terms of expanding horizons and, more importantly, perhaps seeing the world from a different perspective. And certainly I was fortunate enough personally, not in terms of volunteering, but I was fortunate enough to attend university in Ireland as a result of European funding and the fact that we were part of Europe at the time. And as somebody who had been brought up in Anglesey, speaking Welsh, even though I thought I was an open-minded person, full of empathy, going to Dublin to be part of an international community and a different country certainly gave me a different perspective in terms of the fact that when I went there in 1999, soon after that, there was the agreement. A number of people there had been brought up in Northern Ireland, and I understood, and they understood how close war was to home, and I understood how close that was, and I understood the great differences in the society and communities across the water from us. I benefited from a number of advantages and also saw that a number of my peers already had volunteering opportunities abroad, because quite often in Ireland there are schemes available for people who have fulfilled their leaving cert, such as the GCSE, that everybody has the opportunity to volunteer abroad and to be part of international schemes, whatever their background. And I saw, therefore, how much of an impact that had had on my peers. By the time they were 18 years of age, they'd already had these experiences and they'd developed a better understanding and empathy. And I totally support, therefore, the ambition that the centre has to ensure that every young person has such an experience. We have so many challenges facing us, haven't we, as a world internationally. Peace, as we know, is still something that we need to work on. Then there's the climate emergency that needs us to work collaboratively. On our own, not one nation can save our planet and save nature, but we have to have this international understanding. As Susie mentioned, I welcome the statement from the Welsh Government that there are still opportunities for young people to go abroad, but I think it is something that every party will have to work with the government on and other partners to ensure that we do go ahead during the period of the Sixth Senedd to realise that ambition, because the sooner we do it, the better it is to ensure that everybody has this opportunity. As I mentioned, we are in a crisis situation in terms of climate and nature. And that means that we need to nurture better understanding, better links, and through technology such as this, it has showed, just not physically, that those links can be established. So first of all, thank you to all of you who are part of this important work. You have my total support, and I look forward very much to work with you to realise this important ambition that is central to what all of us want, namely peace, a better understanding of each other, kindness towards each other, so that everybody everywhere in the world have equal opportunities, and that we together can ensure a better future for our world and for each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. That is wonderful. Great to hear your experiences of studying in Ireland and how international volunteering has really shaped opportunities there. Thank you. And our final presentation for the morning, before we go into the Human Library, is from our returned volunteer, Joe Lewis. Joe, are you with us?
I am, yes. I'm just trying to work out the presentation for 1 second. Ooh. Can you see me? I put my camera on. I can't quite see myself. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks to WCIA and for coming to for asking me to come and sort of share my experiences. I was a volunteer. I was part of the EVS program, the European Voluntary Service, from 2009 to 2010, which is over 10 years ago now, which is mad to think. Just let me try to bring up only, I'm just trying to bring up the presentation I have. Okay, I think, yeah, can you see that? I can't see you, so I'm
yes, we can.
Oh, perfect, right. So I've only got 10 minutes, which isn't very long. And the reason why I'm always so happy to come and sort of do stuff around international volunteering is because I think for me, it was a really significant period in my life, quite transformative. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a before and after look. Joe Lewis at 17 and then maybe Joe Lewis now. So it's going to get a bit kind of like, this is your life. So you'll have to kind of forgive me for that, but I thought it was the easiest way of demonstrating the impact. So yeah, so I was, as I said, I was 18 when I applied and then 19. I just turned 19 when I eventually went to Estonia. But so I said it was going to get a bit parky, but so this is Joe Lewis at 17 years old, very young and youthful. The hair was still a mess. So, but I wanted to kind of show that, like, so I grew up in Yslavera, which is in the Upper Swansea Valley, and similar to what Susie was saying, it's quite a rural area. Really poor transport links. Getting up and down the valley was a bit of a mission. Not hugely kind of, you know, coming to Cardiff hardly ever happened. Particularly if you didn't drive, you were really reliant on public transport, which was kind of like a bit non-existent. So it was quite, you know, quite in some ways challenging when you were 16, 17 and you wanted to get out and see the world. I would describe myself as a solid C student, like really academically, not particularly noteworthy. I was very laid back, didn't really attend college all that often, if I did. So kind of did the minimum I needed to sort of survive and get by. I had absolutely no plans to go to university before I went, because I kind of didn't really like education all that much. So I thought university, definitely not for me. I'll go off and do something else. I had no idea what that thing was, but I would do something. In terms of the family, which I reflect on this now, and I think the family stuff is really important. Like, you might have come across the acronym JAM, just about managing, which kind of sums up, I think, my family background. We didn't have a huge amount of disposable income, but I was 16, 17 at this point, and I was aware that people did gap years. I wanted to do a gap year, but I was also aware that I was skint at the time and didn't really know how I could travel or how I could go abroad and do something interesting and meaningful. But I was definitely curious to kind of do it. So that's kind of me at 17. And then this is lovely Estonia here. I had, I remember when I first found out about the EVS project, which sort of facilitated this international volunteering. It was, so someone from UNA Exchange, as it was then, came to Neath College and sort of gave this presentation about, introduced this program where you could go and work abroad and accommodation would sort of be facilitated, and it sounded like, to me, the thing that I was looking for. Like, I didn't really know how to go abroad. I knew the world was bigger than Ystalyfera, but I didn't know much more. And I certainly didn't know how to do gap years and all the rest of it. So this program sounded like exactly what I was looking for. And yeah, so someone from UNA came in on a Wednesday, which was amazing that I attended, because Wednesday was like a slow day for me. That was tutor group, which is shorthand for not going in, basically. So, but amazingly, I woke up in time, and even more amazingly, I got myself to the bus stop and went in got to college in time to have this presentation about UNA Exchange. And it totally sort of, yeah, changed the trajectory of my life. That's not too dramatic. I think it's true. I fired off a load of applications to EVS, and I didn't, the one that came back to me was this project in Estonia, and I knew nothing about Estonia at the time, other than they'd won the Eurovision Song Contest relatively near to that, and it was probably cold. That was pretty much the level of my research going into this. But the project themes were around education, community cohesion, and ethnic reconciliation. I didn't really know what any of that meant. I knew about education, community cohesion, ethnic reconciliation, not really. And then this is where I was living. So from Ystalyfera, relatively rural, I ended up in a part of Tallinn called Lasnamäe, which is a Russian sort of, it was built during the Soviet period, as you can probably tell, a really strong ethnic Russian population. I wasn't aware of, so I'll give you a bit of a rundown. Like, there's a really significant ethnic Russian population in Estonia. So Estonia is a post-Soviet country. So they have a significant Russian population, which is there as a result of the industrial policies pursued by the Soviet Union. And I subsequently learned that ethnic Russians, generally speaking, have quite significantly worse educational outcomes, life outcomes, health outcomes, pretty much all across the board. And I wasn't aware of any of this before I went. It was completely new to me. And I quickly became fascinated by it. So this was the project that I worked in. I'm behind the camera. But yeah, because the kids that I was working with, they were really smart, articulate, explaining, English was their third language, and we were having these types of conversations because the project was about delivering English lessons, if you like, in a after school club. And yeah, so I had a range of ages from about 8 years old all the way up to about 18. And yeah, just 1 year or 2 years younger than I was at the time. And yeah, they were super smart, super articulate, but I was aware through just like living my life in Tallinn that there were some really interesting societal differences. And I was kind of fascinated by it in a way. And I decided, having sort of lived in Estonia and done the project, because a lot of the kids, they didn't have citizenship. Even though they were born in Estonia, they had never lived anywhere else, but they were denied citizenship. They weren't full Estonian citizens. And the tensions, if you like, the relationship between ethnic Russians and ethnic Estonians seemed to like dominate the conversations that I was having with regular people while I was there. So I became really fascinated by this, and decided that actually it would be really good. I wanted to study this. So maybe I thought, actually, you know, I never thought university was for me, but maybe I would like to take this further. So I'll just show you, because I think I'm in danger of running over. But yeah, so after this, I tried to really quickly get myself on a uni course to do sociology. So I ended up doing an undergrad in sociology at Northumbria, which wasn't easy for me because, as I mentioned before, not going to college is not conducive to like getting good A levels. So but you know, the experience was such that I thought, actually, I'm going to try and make the most of this experience and take the grades that I do have and try and go anywhere that'll have me. So from Estonia, I applied to a university in Newcastle. I'd never been to the Northeast either, but I thought, you know, it's closer than Estonia, isn't it? Like, I mean, I now realize you're not like an EasyJet flight is quicker than the Megabus from Newcastle to Swansea. So, but anyway, so I ended up doing that, but I sort of wanted to look at it more. So I kept that EVS experience with me, and I ended up doing a postgrad degree in Russian and East European politics, because I was particularly interested in this idea of how was it that the kids that I was working with were like denied citizenship in an EU country in 2006. You know, I kind of wanted to learn and know more about that, because I had some Russian language skills as well at the time, but have significantly degraded since, but there we are. Yeah, so I did a postgrad degree in Russian and East European politics, and I was looking at minority rights within the EU. Off the back of that, I then went to, I did a 4-month internship in Berlin working with there's a very large Russian community in Berlin. So that experience in Estonia definitely sort of facilitated that internship. Moved back to Wales, started working in the voluntary sector for an Equalities Council at the time, because I was kind of interested in migration and equality, some of these themes that were the sort of came through from that EVS experience. And I'm now moved into the public sector, kind of doing like equalities and like general policy related work. So yeah, so I think I'm over time, but I hope you can see from that you know, if you can imagine like your life as a trajectory, it was a really important like Wednesday for me when I managed to wake up and get the bus to come in, that ultimately totally sent me on a different course. Because as I said, I wasn't really thinking about university, definitely not thinking about university. I'd written that off. But yeah, that experience, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, because, you know, just financially, I wouldn't know how that would have been possible. Yeah, like an international volunteering experience, I kind of look at it as my first ever job, if you like, because it felt like a job to me. Yeah, had a really significant kind of impact. And I hope that other people from, you know, Valley communities have that opportunity in the future. So yeah, that's me. I'll stop sharing.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, so wow, that is just well, without further ado, let's find out more from volunteers about how transformative the experience has been from them, and also how much change a volunteer can have for a host organization. So I'm going to introduce you all to the Human Library. We're going to be putting you all into breakout rooms, so it's a chance to have your cameras and microphones on, meet a variety of volunteers and hosts, and hear directly from them. Okay, so the volunteers and the hosts will switch rooms every 8 minutes, and you'll remain in the same rooms. So when you see the invitation to join a breakout room, please do so. I think so. Thank you, everybody. I just really wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining this journey to celebrate 101 years of international exchange. I really found that Human Library experience and the presentations fascinating. I've certainly learned a lot about how transformational these experiences can be. So I hope you have too. For me, I heard about new languages learned, careers nurtured, and a whole world of opportunities opening up. I just had a really strong visual image of a beam of light meeting a prism, and then a whole rainbow of opportunities opening up from that opportunity. Welcome back to the room, everybody. I was just saying how fascinating it was to hear from everybody today. As Susie said, here at the WCIA, our work crosses over the youth, the third and the school sector, and our aspirations are that every young person in Wales will have the opportunity for an international exchange or global citizenship experience as an essential part of their lifelong learning journey. And the forthcoming International Learning and Exchange Programme, which is currently in design and going live next year, means that those experiences which were previously funded through Erasmus Plus and the ESC are not lost to Wales following Brexit. So today's event certainly highlighted for me just how relevant and important these opportunities are for young people today. And I'm really hopeful that my children will get those experiences too. So yeah, I want to just say thank you to everybody who has joined us today. And in particular to MS Heledd Vychan for sponsoring this event, and to all of the speakers and the volunteers, and to you for joining us. So diolch yn fawr pawb, and hwyl fawr.